So we have to be careful. And me, as I sit here as a politician, I've said it all the time. I'll say it here, Doc. My overriding and overwhelming reason for being on this show and for being in politics is to see how the poor, vulnerable, and those who don't have jobs will get something to do. Empowerment. That's why I'm in politics. So even if this morning I would resist the temptation, I will not mention any company that in the past did some works under Mills, JM, Rollins, who are connected family-wise to people in the... I will not do that. And the only reason why I will not do that is that I know there are people who are surviving, who are feeding their families because they are getting some work to do. Jobs. That's why we are all in this business. Doc, what are the things that I look out for, or we should look out for, if we are speaking in a nationalistic manner, in the way that will help the country to make progress, and not to, how do you call it, taint one black just so that you can have access to political power? A company should have capacity, Doc. An entity that desires or is given a job should have capacity. There should be value for money. I agree. And thirdly, the procedure must be right. These are incontestable rules, things that must be honored. Sammy, when he was speaking, the council said that predominance, Bamian said sole sourcing, there was predominance of sole sourcing and 86% and all that. What I remember, which actually is the case, is that the New Patriotic Party in the opposition made a presentation and said, looked at the percentage of contracts that were given out that were sole sourced, I think during our first term, and said that when you look at the volume in terms of the figure of what we gave out in sole sourcing, he looked at the percentages and said that there had been a reduction in terms of the volumes or the quantity. If you normally like standardization, it's possible that 1 million Ghana cedis then was, let's say, X million dollars, and now it's Y million dollars. So the point that we made was that you had a significant number of all awards going through sole sourcing, and that more often than not, you don't get value for money through sole sourcing. And during our first term, we made presentations, I remember, which said that we had made savings because we had not exploited or used that route as much as the NDC did. That is true. But this impression that sole sourcing is something that we were never going to use, that one I don't really remember where we said it's one that we'll not use.
You don't remember the NPP saying that sole sourcing was corruption?
Oh, Doc, if you can give me the exact code. And the reason why I'm saying so is that more often than not,
I can give you a presser by the Dankwa Institute.
Yes.
I can give you interviews by Sir John as General Secretary and after being General Secretary.
Look, the point...
I can give you statements by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo himself.
Look, like the way you put...
If he even went beyond that, to even in Kumasi say that his wife will not be in charge of the award of contracts.
Look, I remember someone was here...
And extremely low in Ghana's politics.
Look, you had a guest who mentioned something that Mahama said something, and when he read it was a headline, he said you should go to the text.
Yes.
My point is that we put out, which is true in substance, that...
No, I'm telling you text that I can produce for you now.
Yes. You see, we put out that, and it is still true, more often than not, you are more likely to get value for money, and I'm choosing my words, it's more likely, when you go through a tendering system, Doc, than the sole sourcing system. And I use more likely because it can so happen that even also in sole sourcing, you can get some value for money. Doc, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we put that essentially across, which still is true now. But the point I am making is that the exact words where we say that sole sourcing is corruption, that one, I really doubt if it would have been so. But the substance that, more often than not, through the route of sole sourcing, you are less likely to get for value for money. That one we put is something that we put up. And it's still true.
So when you have a situation where the Auditor General says that even the rules pertaining to sole sourcing,
I'm coming there.
Naturally,
I'm coming there. In my friend, I've written it. Doc, and you see, we have the PPA. Doc, when I was, even in the public, when I served at health insurance, there were some jobs or arrangements that went through the PPE. There were some that went through the central, how do you call that, the entity, the one at finance.
Central entity.
Tender.
Yes.
Yes. There were some that go through, we advertise in the papers. Doc. There were occasions where PPA comes back to us and says that this value you are going for this particular work is high, that they will not take this figure, they will take X figure. There were occasions where I remember PPA actually wrote to us that a particular arrangement we want to do was actually not even in tandem with the law, as it cannot happen. And there were occasions where they gave approval, Doc. What am I? If a company, a government organization, Doc, goes through PPE, gives out a contract of sole sourcing, and they've gone through the procedure, and it's legal. If you are speaking about the worth of the contract, and that we should look at the worth and all that, it's a fair thing to ask. But it is not correct to say that it is illegal because it is a sole sourcing vehicle. You know what I mean?
No, but what I heard.
No, I'm coming to it.
Okay.
That's the first one. I want to make that one clear.
Yeah.
So that we understand that.
Sole sourcing is allowed.
Allowed, correct.
Yes.
No. Now, if the Auditor General says that, and I wrote it too. He said two of the routes. Two of the route was cited by the Auditor General as not being going through the process. So if a company undertakes, let's say, 100 assignments, Doc, and 2 have not gone through the procedure. In fact, largely, stricto sensu, it's not even procedure. I should speak about the one who should have gone to, because the company, the vendor is not the one who goes through the process. It's you, the one awarding. Doc,
if you're a responsible company.
No, I understand, but
you ought to see.
No, I'll come to that.
No, I'm saying you ought to see all of that.
Yeah, but you see, I want to paint the whole picture.
So that when they are giving you the award letter will even indicate the PPA's approval.
All I'm saying is that we should cite both, assuming there is impropriety. It is the employer, the client, the one, this time the employer, the one giving out the job, the state institution or actor, must be mentioned that should have been the one to make sure that the right thing happens. And then on the part of ethics and, like you said, credibility, the one receiving it should have said that we should go through the procedure. And I want him, because he's fixated, because the objective is consolidate or put out there that there's corruption. So he is more on the company, So that's the point I want to make.
Right.
And look, the other point I also want to make is that if the Auditor General cites or mentions something, I'll say largely or in principle, more often than not, most of them hold. As when you test it in the courts, what their position is really true. But we must be careful. Look, I think the law allows that when you have been cited, you've responded, and still what they come out with is injurious. If you are very convinced, you can go to the High Court. Is that not it? Yes. There's been occasions when people have gone to the courts and actually exactly. So I'm saying this so that my brother would be mindful of the fact that although more often than not their things hold, it's not sacrosanct. There are occasions where they don't end up. Since we want to build this country, we want to make progress, we are learning. I want to read this story on Ghana Web, and then I'll make a few comments. NDC dodges $29 million Kumasi airport scandal. The Mahama-led National Democratic Congress government has been running away from the duty they owe Ghanaians to explain how it could spend a whooping $29 million on the nation's resources on the rehabilitation of the runway of the Kumasi airport. There was no responses to questions raised by Franklin Kujo, president of Imani Ghana, before the end of 2014. Neither has there been any response to similar concerns raised last week by Kwabena Ajay-Japon, General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. The inauguration of the aeronautical ground lighting system was characterized by extraordinary fanfare. At a time, it had been reported that Anglo Gold Ashanti and others had built and inaugurated an airport at Obuasi at a cost of $4 million. The airport built by Anglo Gold, the airport built by Anglo Gold has a 2-kilometer runway and a modern terminal with offices and lounges for departures and arrivals. The announcement of the outrageous cost of the Kumasi Airport Rehabilitation Project also took place at the same time. It had been reported that Ethiopia was building 3 new airports at a cost of $64.5 million. Doc, what point am I trying to make? You see, that's why I said history, those who study history will tell you, is good for planning the future. So, under Sami's favorite presidential candidate, John Mahama, we had occasions where resources that were spent on, this time, like the way, I don't want to say Kama or God works, a similar, almost the same thing, airport, because it started tsunami. People said, hey, $29 million for aeronautical sometimes. It's too much. Look, what is at the heart or foundation of projects which citizens think are either high or should have been tended but were given so. Look, what is at the heart? If we want to make progress and speak in a way that shows that we love Ghana. Look, at the heart of this, civil society, democratic watchers have told us as a country that we should look closely at how campaigns and political activities are funded. Mancha, have you not heard that before? Why? The last time I checked, I spoke to one political scientist. He was telling me that in Ghana here, it costs an average of $100,000, Doc, to do a very good regional tour in Ghana. In terms of mobilization, organization, taking care of people, and deploying both the program and coming back to Accra, $100,000. A good regional tour, effective one. Doc, if you multiply by 60, I know you didn't go to a science school, but if you multiply by 60, you get $1.6 million. Manje, Dr. Baumia, just like myself, we are all public servants. Is that not it? At least that's what it means receiving monthly salary. As for GM, he's not working. He's an ex-president. I stand to be corrected, but what he gets is the money the sitting president gets. He's not up to $100,000 a month. So how is he able to fund his political activities? There are people who are businessmen who support the system. In the United States of America, Doc, every week you hear Harris raised $30 million in a week. Trump raised $5 million. Doc, these people are traveling the journey we are traveling. They've gone ahead of us. Why do they do these things? They do it so that there is transparency as to who brings the money, where the person is coming from. Doc, in Ghana, leaders, politicians, we do things that require resources. More often than not, citizenry are interested in how you let the resources reach them. Only few ask you, where are the resources coming from? Doc. And so, over the period, any law that gives some room for you to give a job to someone who has capacity, anyone who is a natural or rational human being, will find a way to give it to someone who, first of all, can meet the three things I talked about, has capacity, go through procedure. In this case, the procedure will be one, which may be, although might not be like tendering, is also in the books. Mancha, you get what I mean? And then, lastly, the three things I mentioned: procedure, value for money, and then capacity. Doc.